Hi, I'm Ben Ferguson, and welcome to your AMAC Weekly News. First up, members of the GOP and the president are calling for the release of the whistleblower's identity, who claimed a quid pro quo was happening between Donald Trump and the new president of Ukraine. Well, now liberals are claiming this is, quote, a very dangerous situation if you name the person who is the leaker. Yet in the past, Democrats have leaked names of anyone who they did not like serving in our government. More on that in a moment. Up next, footage of an ABC reporter services placing ABC News under the microscope. Now, this footage shows a reporter complaining that the network literally killed a story about alleged sexual misconduct by Jeffrey Epstein back in 2015. More on what the network is saying about this in a minute. And finally, 9 Americans were killed and 7 children were injured by a Mexican drug cartel in Mexico. Questions of why this happened and what this would mean as far as a military action being called from the president is now coming to the debate table. More on that important story in just a moment. Quick reminder, please share this video with your friends right now on social media. Your AMAC Weekly News starts right now. Shocker here, big breaking news. Liberals are mad about something involving impeachment. Now, are they mad about the fact that the president is being unfairly treated by liberals in Congress? No. Are they mad that liberals in Congress are wasting precious time and insane amounts of taxpayers' dollars chasing a fake news story? The answer, no. Are they mad because Senator Rand Paul said that the name of the whistleblower needs to be released? Yep, that's right. That's now what they're losing their minds over. They are mad because Senator Paul believes the president should actually be able to face his accuser. Listen to Paul from the president's most recent rally aired on CNN.
The whistleblower needs to come before Congress as a material witness because he worked for Joe Biden at the same time Hunter Biden was getting money from corrupt oligarchs. I say tonight to the media, do your job and print his name.
Liberals are losing their minds over this. They are calling it, quote, very dangerous, deeply troubling, and bullying. Listen to what Representative Jamie Raskin said in an interview on CNN about this exact subject.
What do you say to Senator Rand Paul?
I mean, very dangerous stuff to be scapegoating and targeting the whistleblower. The whistleblower is an irrelevant distraction at this point because the whistleblower was the person who said, and remember, the president emphasized this, I don't have firsthand knowledge of any of this, but I've been told a series of things by people who were involved. All of those people, or not all of them, but lots of them have come forward very bravely over the threats of the White House to testify precisely about what they knew.
So let me get this straight. Liberals are saying that this whistleblower, the one who got all of this started, is no longer relevant or important. Well, he is. He's the reason why we are in this entire mess in the first place. Now, of course, he is important. Now, Raskin isn't the only one saying the whistleblower is no longer relevant to any of the discussion. Representative Ted Lieu also said this in an interview on MSNBC.
So we know that the whistleblower's identity is no longer relevant because everything he said has now been corroborated by other witnesses.
Now, to be very clear, the whistleblower who has become the liberals' pride and joy is now considered by them to be irrelevant. Now, if he is irrelevant, then isn't the entire impeachment inquiry irrelevant as well? Now, Senator Paul didn't stop by just saying what he said at the rally. Paul thoroughly believes, like we all should, that if there is a trial, then the President of the United States of America has every right to confront his accuser. Listen to how he explained it on Fox News.
The statute says the Inspector General can't reveal the name. There's nothing that prevents me from saying it now other than that I want it to be more about the process and less about the person. But there's no law that prevents me from mentioning the name of who's been said to be the whistleblower. But there's also
convinced you know?
Yeah. And there's something important also. It's called the Constitution. The Sixth Amendment to the Constitution says if you are going to accuse me of a crime, I get to stare you down in court. That is absolutely part of the Constitution. The statute might say one thing, but I promise you, if there is a trial, you always get to confront your accuser. It's in the Sixth Amendment. It's in the Bill of Rights. There's no way they can stop the defense from asking.
Now, it's very clear in the Constitution, and it says that the president will have every right to face down his accuser if this goes to trial. Not only does it say that the president will have the right to, quoting directly from the actual Constitution, it says, quote, be confronted with the witness against him. That's in the Constitution. Now, he also enjoys the right to, quote, have a compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor. That means that whether the liberals like it or not, the president has every right to know who the whistleblower is and to have his own witnesses testify on his behalf. So you see, one thing that the liberals are lying about is that they are offering the president the same impeachment rules offered to Nixon or Clinton. What really happened is that at the very last minute, Section F was quietly devised by the Judiciary Committee Chairman, Jerry Nadler. Now, let me explain to you why Section F is so important. It stipulates that unless the president surrenders executive privilege, a power even the Supreme Court has ruled is vital to that office, that the president and his lawyers will be denied any ability to call or question witnesses. So, if anything, this is a direct violation of the Constitution. Now, liberals are trying to take away every constitutional right that Donald Trump has to prove his innocence. They have completely destroyed the idea of innocent until proven guilty. And even more than that, they are trying to discredit the results of a free and fair election voted on by the American people. So we have to put an end to their reign of tyranny, which is exactly why AMAC is fighting for you on Capitol Hill every day to make sure that your vote and your voice is not silenced in this process. And one of the most shocking stories that we've seen in years, ABC News is now under fire because of a video that was leaked of an ABC News anchor, Amy Robach, discussing how the network killed her bombshell story about Jeffrey Epstein 3 years ago. I want you to take a listen to what Robach had to say, complaining about how her bosses handled an interview with an Epstein accuser brought forward by Project Veritas. Take a look.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
I want you to think about the time frame we're talking about here. We're talking about 3 years that this went unreported. I want you to think about all of the horrific things that Epstein was able to do during those 3 years. And ABC News did nothing to stop him. They did not call the police or authorities in any capacity either. They apparently knew everything. ABC put out a statement from Robach saying, quote, as the Epstein story continued to unfold last summer, I was caught in a private moment of frustration. I was upset that an important interview I had conducted with Virginia Roberts didn't air because we could not obtain sufficient corroborating evidence to meet ABC's editorial standards about her allegations. Now, Robach literally said, quote, we could not obtain sufficient corroborating evidence to meet ABC's editorial standards. After we already know she had interviews and corroborating evidence that would have opened the eyes of officials and what Epstein was doing to countless victims. Now, I'm sorry, but the standard of ABC News that they claim they use to vet stories, well, they're a complete lie. ABC has a history of jumping on other stories that are completely uncorroborated and not factual at all if they are against conservatives. For example, calling Brett Kavanaugh a gang rapist, reporting Trump colluded with Putin, and the fake racism story about Covington High School student Nick Sandman, who is now having to clear his name by suing news organizations. All of these were aired virtually immediately. Yet, a story that was corroborated with pictures and interviews and research, and to one of the men who could be one of the most prolific pedophiles our country will ever know, is never aired by ABC News. Now, Judge Jeanine on Fox had this to say about ABC News' claims of, well, their standards. Take a look.
I don't understand why NBC, ABC, all of these people are interested in protecting a pedophile. And by the way, she comes out with this statement explaining it, saying, you know, I never really stopped working on it, and we just didn't have the standards. We couldn't corroborate. That's like saying to a rape victim,
that's
unless
not
you
what
have
she
corroboration.
said. But look, she's caught between a rock and a hard place because they're saying, Amy, you like your job here?
Well, no, but what I'm saying, that ABC is making that excuse as well. They're saying they didn't have sufficient corroboration. The truth is, if they had gotten those plane logs, they would have had them. The truth is that Acosta had the case from 2005 in Florida. There was all kinds of corroboration down there. And if they said that they would have done it, but they just didn't have enough, what have they been doing for the past 3 years? They haven't done anything on it. And now they say they're going to do something next year. It's Amy Robach. I'm very proud of her. It's ABC that I'm talking about.
To be clear, this is what happens when the mainstream media is given full power to decide what they believe is important to Americans. They would rather air fake news stories than the ones that are actually verified and could have saved countless victims if it was aired 3 years ago. Now, the only way to end this is to make our voices heard. We need to let the mainstream media know that they need to tell us the truth. And that is exactly what AMAC is fighting for every day. This past week, at least 6 children and 3 women living in a Mormon offshoot community of U.S. citizens in Mexico were shot and burned to death. 7 children survived but were left injured, while another initially went missing. Now, this took place after their convoy came under fire during a daylight ambush believed to have been carried out by gunmen from a Mexican drug cartel. Take a look at this footage that aired on Fox News.
Survivors say they were members of a Mormon family living in Mexico with dual U.S. citizenship. They were reportedly driving when they were ambushed by what's believed to be a cartel. Some of their bodies were found in this SUV, set on fire and riddled with bullet holes. One family relative saying that he saw the attack and that dozens of heavily armed men were standing around the burning SUV. One claiming that there were others kidnapped, but another relative told a reporter that they're all accounted for, so it's a very fluid situation. Mexican National Guard, police, and military forces have been dispatched overnight, searching in several operations.
Now, the area where the attack took place is located less than 100 miles from America, from the Arizona border, and it is consistently under a dispute with several different cartels, which means bloodshed. Now, there are many theories surfacing about why this family was targeted. There have been at least 1 arrest made in connection with this horrific event. Now, what we do know is that it is definitely involving the drug cartels that are basically controlling Mexico and its government. About 200 shell casings of .223 and 77mm caliber guns were found on the scene. President Trump has been offering up his support to Mexico in light of the murders. He tweeted out, quote, "This is time for Mexico, with the help of the United States, to wage war on the drug cartels and wipe them off the face of the earth. We merely await a call from your great new president." Now, this all comes less than a month after soldiers surrendered El Chapo's son. Now, El Chapo is a former cartel leader, and during the time in which his son was captured by government forces, the cartel literally terrorized a city in Mexico where they grabbed him. So the cartel started waging war in that city, and then the president of Mexico decided, I don't want to be a part of this. So he released El Chapo's son back to the cartel to stop the violence. No, I'm not kidding. The president of Mexico is literally allowing the cartels to run his country. Now, they're calling the shots, and the government is the one that's doing their dirty work. These cartels are dangerous, and they are deadly. They are not only dangerous because of the acts they commit, similar to what happened to the poor American families that were hit this week, but they are dangerous because of the drugs that they are bringing into the United States, plus all the human trafficking. Now, President Trump has already offered his services to Mexico to fight these cartels. But the president of Mexico has repeatedly said he wants to end the war with the cartels. That is right. As the leader of Mexico, he has come out and said that he is not going to protect the citizens. He's not going to protect the borders either if it means any conflict with the cartels. Now, with all of this violence spilling out of Mexico, you understand why Trump has made building a border wall a priority of his administration. We must make it harder for these cross-border criminals to operate and smuggle drugs and violence in and out of America. That's it for this edition of your AMAC Weekly News. Now be sure to share this post with your family and friends on social media. Also, a quick reminder, if you haven't joined AMAC or renewed your membership, do it now so you can continue to receive this show and access to our incredible member benefits that also include our AMAC magazine. Most importantly, AMAC is fighting and representing more than 2 million conservatives just like you every day on Capitol Hill. So make sure you join or renew today. I'm Ben Ferguson, and I'll see you back next week for our next episode.